Some big companies, many Calgarians, and even some governments would like to see pipelines built to the west with Northern Gateway and the south with Keystone XL. What is your position on whether these pipelines should be built? Harvey Locke, you're first.
First question is, do we need to get products produced in Alberta to foreign markets? The answer is yes, we do. Next question is, through what means? We have a big network of pipelines that already runs to the United States for oil and gas. The Keystone pipeline is another one that's proposed. There's a problem with it. It's going to a market in the United States, and we don't control the United States. It's a funny thing, but when you are a province like Alberta without a coastline, you actually have to work with your neighbors. And we have forgotten that lesson. So when the good folks of Nebraska said we don't want the pipeline through Nebraska, they weren't wrong, they just acted like owners. And they said, we don't want it, so go somewhere else. So we have to find a way to go somewhere else. And we need to think about these things in a way that gets our product to market. We are not a country that gets to tell people what to do. But we have a government that likes to tell people what to do. And that government can't get projects built because it keeps telling people what to do. And it doesn't work. 20 years ago, when we were doing environmental assessment stuff in this city, a principle emerged called Decide, Announce, Defend. Does anybody remember that? Some of you have been active in the field for a long time. It's, I know what I want to do, I'm going to tell you what I want to do, and then I'm going to defend it if you have any questions. And then a more enlightened approach emerged, which is, I'd like to do this project, can we talk about it, how we might get there together? Now come forward to the Gateway Pipeline. Where are we? Well, we need to get products to Asia. We do. We take a haircut on the price when we sell our products to the United States. So the question is, how should we get them to Asia? The solution that the Harper government has is there's a pipeline proposed to the coast to go right through this wonderfully sensitive fjord and through the Great Bear Rainforest. Why don't we demolish the environmental laws of Canada to make sure it goes through faster? Now this is an appallingly stupid approach to getting a project built. British Columbia is not under our control, strangely enough. And there are First Nations there with unresolved land claims. When you want to do a project, you talk to people. And as Canadians, we know that. And what's happening to our country is it's getting angrier and angrier. Thomas Mulcair calls Alberta a place with Dutch disease. Stephen Harper says if you oppose a pipeline, you're a disloyal, you're an enemy, or you're a money launderer. Do you recognize that country at all? It's appalling. It is simply not Canadian. It's not how we behaved in Alberta for a very long time when we had the Energy Resources Conservation Board as one of the most famous regulators on earth, where we used to have integrated conversations about social, economic, and environmental effect. Now that's all gone. It's just get out of the way, I'm the boss.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you very much. Chris Turner, what's your position on pipeline building in Canada?
Well, obviously, this is an issue that's very, very important and very much top of mind for Calgarians at the moment. We're hearing a lot about it on the doors for sure. What I would say, first of all, is that it is a fundamental failure of leadership. And more than anything, I think what we're seeing project to project, whether it's here in Canada or abroad, is that breakdown of the public trust because of that lack of leadership on the part of the federal government. What's happened basically is that we have exited any kind of real conversation with the people whose permission we now need to expand the resource. I absolutely agree that the resource does need to reach markets, that we do need to get a fair market price for it. But again, I don't think we can solve this project to project. I really do think we need to step back, have a much broader conversation about what our goals are for the resource, what the rules are, what the regulatory apparatus to manage them needs to be, and then begin to move forward. So really at this point, talking about any particular project doesn't get to the heart of the matter. That said, I also share the concern about the Great Bear Rainforest. I've spent some time there. It is absolutely one of the most spectacular and unique natural environments in Canada, equivalent to Banff National Park, equivalent to the Great Lakes, and it absolutely has to be protected. It's way too much risk to take on for a single project. That said, I do think we need to step back. I really do think we need to have a real conversation about energy, a grown-up conversation, before we can decide where our priorities are and which of these projects is the one that needs to move forward.
Well, it's a great question, and I appreciate it. I want to be really, really clear so that nobody's uncertain about what I mean after my answer. The Northern Gateway is a non-starter. It is not economically wise. It is not environmentally wise. We have no interest in sending a pipeline through delicate ecosystems and into a delicate harbor. And the important thing we need to remember there is, of course, if we were to have that pipeline, we would be sacrificing economic and valuable jobs here at home. If there is a pipeline that needs to be built from Western Canada, it should be from west to east. That way, people in the east of the country, 1/3 of the country, would be able to purchase oil at a lower price than they currently are. Producers here in Alberta would be able to sell their oil for a higher price than they currently are. And the value-added jobs, the manufacturing and refining jobs, would be kept in Canada. So that's the answer to a pipeline question. It's a non-starter from a Northern Gateway point of view. If we decide that pipelines are what we need, it needs to go from west to east. There will be some that would say this is somehow stopping foreign investment. That is not the case at all. We can still get our products to market. We're doing it right now. The other important thing to remember is that currently, oil sands development is at 2 million barrels of oil a day. Interestingly, oil consumption in Canada is at 2 million barrels a day. So it doesn't make sense for us to be shipping oil from Saudi Arabia to Eastern Canada and shipping oil from Western Canada to Asia. Much has been made about the comments from Tom Mulcair. And so I want to really lay out what he was saying. He was saying two important things. Number one, Canadians should benefit from Canadian resources. And number two, companies should clean up their own messes. I'd be curious to hear which of those two things you both disagree with, especially you, Harvey, suggesting that in some way there's an anti-Alberta sentiment in suggesting that Canadians should benefit from Canadian resources and companies should clean up after themselves. And so those are the tenets that we need when we think about oil sands development as it relates to pipelines especially. So pipelines aren't bad, but sending them through delicate ecosystems to ship unrefined products to other markets doesn't make sense economically, and it doesn't make sense environmentally. Thank you.